We begin recording. Welcome to the Helm developer call for Thursday, March 7th, 2019. Let's see, I will drop in if you need a link to the agenda and meeting minutes, it's dropped into chat now. So we'll get started with announcements. It looks like and this goes to the Helm Summit. Actually, Michelle, since you have both of these announcements, would you like to announce them?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just going to do a Helm Summit update. So far, we've been planning on having Helm Summit in September, the second week of September. Karen and the CNCF folks found a venue in Amsterdam and have it on hold. So we're still moving through that process. But since we have something and things are looking good, I wanted to go ahead and open up the program committee applications. So the program committee application is now open, and you can find the form for if you are interested in joining on the agenda or meeting minutes. Basically, if you're on the program committee, what that means is that you would help us or the chairs of the conference review CFPs, and we really encourage everyone who's been part of the community and has an interest in seeing specific types of content at the conference to come and help out. Adam and Fisher are two out of the three co-chairs of this conference. They were also on the program committee last year and have a lot of experience organizing Helm Summit. We're looking for one more co-chair, and we'd like for that co-chair to be someone who's from the community. And so if you are interested in being a co-chair, that is just a checkbox at the end of the application. The form is open till March 29th. You can check out the link for more information. So that's where we are. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, so next we move into stand-ups. And for stand-ups, I'll move to the head next to mine in the camera view here. So I'll start with Mr. Butcher, Dr. Butcher.
So I opened a PR this week because I released another version of Sprig because I had made a dumb mistake on the last release of Sprig. So the current Helm release has a version of Sprig that shouldn't be a supported version of Sprig. However, there's nothing broken to the user about it. We were just, we added some duplicate functions that are not documented anymore because we removed them. So for a while we had two of every function that used a random generator. So I fixed that and released a new version of Sprig, and then opened a PR the other day to update that on Helm 2. So I need to go back and see if that got LGTM'd and get that merged in. But that was a big thing for me this week. I will pass it off to McGill.
Hey guys, so I was just finishing up with the customer engagement last week, so not much to report on my end. Still need to spend some time with Helm 3 that I've been meaning to do, so I want to get into that this week. I will pass it on to, since I was talking about Helm 3, Adam.
Yeah, so this past week, it's been a big week for Helm 3. Momentum's picking up quite a bit. We're doing looks like we have a discussion item for Helm 3 later on, so I won't go into too many of the details. One PR I did get opened up, which is a precursor for some of the builder new pipeline stuff, is a lot of refactoring of the engine package. So this past week, I spent a lot of time diving into Go templates. If no one's really dove into that package before, the internals of it, it is an extremely interesting package. I've never gone that deep into it and really analyzed it, but yeah, it's definitely a good read. There's some Easter eggs in there too. Let's see, go Michelle.
This week I took some time to work on Helm test. So there's a PR open that converts the Helm test command into Helm test run. So it's going to be subcommand now, and then there's a bunch of other subcommands that are subbed out. I did test that, and it looks like I'm having a little bit of trouble getting the test response back. So I'm just digging a little bit more into that. I've also taken some time to refactor the initial proposal for Helm tests. So the proposal that's still in a pull request and is up is basically proposes Helm tests and the subcommands, but it proposes a different way to define tests. So instead of using the annotation, you would put your tests in particular directories. And after doing a little bit of review with the community, I feel like that doesn't really make much sense anymore. So I'm revising that proposal to continue using annotations, but then also adding support for test suites. So those are my two big items to continue working on for the next week as well. Fisher.
So this week or this last week has been kind of like a myriad of multiple things. So I have been pairing with Adam, Michelle, Brian, and a couple of others as well. I think Frina might have like pinged you once or twice maybe in the last week. Basically, I've been trying to figure out the Helm 3 project planning stuff, and I put that on the discussion item just to talk about a little bit of an update on the project board, just for tracking purposes. So I put a little email out for the core maintainers just to get an idea of consensus on that. I haven't heard anything back, so I'll just talk about it on the discussion item. But that has been the majority of my week. And then late last week, I was working on a bigger refactor for the action package. And because of the project planning stuff, I have not been able to get back to that until today. So this morning, I've been going back at that and taking a look and seeing where I can pull smaller stuff out of there, because I think the code changes right now is at 14,000 lines, which is a little bit extreme. So just going through that and seeing where it can make it a lot easier and cleaner to kind of pull that out. So yeah, Adam's face, exactly. So there's that. I think that's about it for this week. Yeah. So, Adnan, do you want to go?
Yeah, I don't think I have much to report this week. So I will pass it on to, let's see who hasn't gone.
Josh hasn't gone.
Josh, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, sorry I'm late. Not a ridiculous amount to report this week. I'm still trying to just mess with Lua in general. I want to reconnect with Brian about how that's going to look from the Helm side of things. Also, Matt Fisher, I got your message about the Helm repo documentation. I'm going to try and get that out before the end of the week also. That's all I have. Anyone?
Martin, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just working at the moment on the libchart dependency use case. So thanks to Matt Fisher for opening that issue, because it would have slipped through the cracks, and also for adding in, getting onto it. So I should have a PR by tomorrow. It would have been today, only I got distracted on a few things. I was looking at a few issues during the week and out on the Slack channel as well, answering a few questions. I also did a look at the good first issues. So I have a little bit of feedback on that. I don't know how best you want me to give you that feedback, and I might go through some more bit deeper in the issues. So there's things ranging from kind of, there's about 3 issues that need reviews and feedbacks, 3 more that's waiting on contributors for a while, different things like that. There's a few, are they still really open? Are they still good first issues? Because they started out as a small issue but got a mind of their own, and just to become a series of comments and input over a period of time. So I don't know what's the best way to give that feedback to people, and but I'll also delve in a bit more into some of them. So let me know what's the best way to do that. And that's it for me.
Did we miss anyone? All right, then I think it's just me. I did just lots of reviews, primarily in the chart side of things this week. Also helped Fisher find a way to do a Windows thing. I was so psyched. I figured out some Windows Command EXE magic that was not easy to figure out, which was fun.
Or the guy that works at Microsoft.
Or the guy who works at Microsoft who uses Windows more than anybody else. Yeah. And then who doesn't look like he's paying that much of attention. Maybe it's the 3D printing going on in the background. All right. And then I got the security process for the Helm org documented, and it's now up. Thanks for everyone who reviewed and provided feedback. We now have a security process for reporting vulnerabilities that's documented with PGP case publicly for encryption. All that good stuff is out there now. And that's what I worked on this week. And so that's it. And so with that, we can actually move on to the discussion topics. And we've got, it looks like 4 of them. Oh, yes.
Real quick, just before you jump into that, I just wanted to give a shout out to Fisher this past week for getting a lot of the Helm 3 stuff organized and taking what is in my crazy head and translating it into something that people can read. So thank you so much for jumping in and getting that organized. It was a huge help.
Yes, thank you, Matt.
So you can print yourself a trophy.
Well, I'm printing a wedding topper. Does that count?
We'll let you decide. Or maybe you can sit down with the philosophy professor and talk this one out. All right, on to the discussion topics. The first one is to make the CRD install hook idempotent. So right now we have issues, and this shows up in the charts repo when we're doing testing. If something's got a CRD, we can't exactly go clean that up, right? It's a manual process to clean that up. And what if you have 2 things going at the same time? When the first one's done, you don't want to delete the CRDs, because if you got a parallel pull request testing, you're going to end up deleting the CRD on them. It's not pretty, right? But this gets back to just a general issue of, can we make, because if you're going to install the same app twice in a cluster and they both use CRDs, the second one errors out if it installs the CRD. It's kind of a problem. So the idea here is to make CRD install hook idempotent, but to also look at the content to make sure that it's the same. And if the being installed content is different, to error out. That's not as easy as it sounds, because we don't exactly just have a hash coming back from the Kubernetes API, but to try to make it work this way. And so before I went off and started doing this stuff, because this is a change, what do y'all think about that?
Matt Butcher, I know that you were the one who originally contributed to this. Do you have any insight into if that might be a problem?
No, I mean, no, I think that should work. Yeah, the trick is always the deleting of CRDs, but I think that as far as if 2 things install the same CRD, handle that gracefully, that's a goal we should be able to achieve for very, in a backward compatible way whenever, right? And should definitely try and have that in Helm 3 as well. So yeah, I think that sounds like a workable thing.
Yeah. With the CRD stuff, I'm just trying to take small bites off to see what's workable, and this seemed like the first workable small thing that could pragmatically move some stuff forward. So, okay.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea. I've gone around this myself before using the capabilities object by doing kind of like an if to see if that CRD already exists, but being able to check that its contents are the same as well would be great.
Yeah, in the capabilities object, just lets you see if the API is there. If you want to add a new thing to the API group, then that doesn't work either. But that's a separate thing that I'm looking at too.
Yeah, luckily I haven't needed to do that yet, but that would definitely be a problem if I wanted to.
Yeah. Okay, so that's okay, then we can move on to the next one. That one was easy. So we've got a Helm 3 status update by Mr. Fisher. The floor is yours.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen here for a second, just kind of show the project board. So I shared this with the rest of the core maintainers as well, but basically pairing with a couple of core maintainers, just trying to figure out what are kind of the things that we're quantifying for an alpha release of Helm 3. So not necessarily like going through.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. The screen is tiny.
Oh, is it? Okay. Is this better?
A little, maybe one more zoom in.
There we go. Okay.
There. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Probably the problem of having a 4K screen. But so the thing here was to try and keep all of us at a high level understanding what kind of things do we want to get in for an alpha release before we start accepting PRs from the community. So in this sense, before someone comes along and says, hey, there's this interesting proposal for Helm that we wanted to try out, and then we can test that and kind of iterate from there. We wanted to make sure that we have a solid foundation of changes that we needed to get done before we started accepting PRs, because if we're just going around and changing 13,000 lines of code underneath everyone, then that's just going to be a rebase nightmare while we're trying to change all that kind of stuff. So after pairing with Adam, Michelle, Brian, and if anyone else has anything else that they think that needs to get in before an alpha, as in some core refactoring of some feature like Helm lint or Helm repo or Helm chart save or things like that that have been introduced, then we should definitely track those things. But this is kind of like an initial layout of what we've got currently, and these are the things that we'd like to have in there. So for things like what Adam's currently working on, which was the template engine or the engine package and working through that. So we're tracking those things now. And the goal here is when we have this project board and we finish through the backlog, we go through in progress, waiting review, LGTM, and finishing it, we should be able to cut an alpha release at that point. So this should help us move forward to figure out things like, what are we all working on? What are we doing all there? So that is all I really had to give a share and update for. Did anyone have any questions or feedback on this, or anything that they can think of that might be good to add to this project board? Maybe.
I have one comment. First of all, awesome. Thank you. I was thinking about something like this recently, and I think like the changes with Helm 3 kind of fall into different buckets. Like I kind of see it as, well, I guess there's all sorts of things, but there's like the Lua stuff, there's the repo stuff, and then there's the tillerless stuff, and then there's random other stuff. Does it make sense to make labels for kind of larger overall changes to group them?
We hadn't actually considered that before.
But now that I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of changes that actually don't fall into those.
Yeah, it might be difficult to do because most of them bleed into the others.
Yeah,
where they're not totally clear lines. There's definitely like major features that we're working on that have a lot of like pull requests that are sub components of that. Like for example, the one that Fisher was talking about, the refactoring of the engine piece, like that's just a component of a bigger feature that I'm working on. So I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
some way of grouping them.
Yeah, I guess right now it's kind of scarce, but like if we hit the gas more on the registry stuff with login and authentication, like there'll be a bunch of different tickets that relate to just that part.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just
I
to
guess
keep it organized, if you can like filter by that, right? So.
Yeah.
I guess the interesting parallel here with Kubernetes at that stage is the special interest groups and how each interest group is interested in a certain area of the code base.
Well,
right now it's been like we only have a smaller amount of contributors, so it hasn't been necessarily like specialized focus groups on one particular area of the code base. Or is this different?
I'm just talking more about like the board itself, less about like who's doing what. Just like if I want to go and see like, oh, what's all related to Lua that's open, and I can
what's
filter
the progress of the Lua feature?
Right.
Is kind of what you're getting at. Yeah,
I think it's fine now, but I'm just saying as more tickets come on, it could be nice to have like a V3 dash Lua
That makes sense.
registry.
Yeah, that might be a good thing to add, especially I think the alpha board is almost final. I mean, those are like, this is the major refactorings that I think what we're trying to do, which is the Lua engine, just trying to get that one in. The schematized value stuff that Ian Howell has been working on, things like the big CLI refactor that I've been doing and the builder refactor that Adam has been doing, just kind of like the bigger infrastructure stuff. But I think that would be a very big thing, especially if we're going from alpha to beta and then we're actually working on features and stuff like that. People might be interested in segregating those things, like this is interested to the Lua engine, or this is more towards the charts or something like that.
Yeah, so we can hold off for now. It was just a thought I had.
So what if we table the discussion for now, but if we think about it in the future and keep in the context of like, where are we seeing these lines and these features, and keep that in mind, and then maybe we can come up with a set of labels to help out that progress or help out that process, so then people can go and filter in the backlog, like what are parts of the code base that I'm interested in taking a look at, like the Lua engine. So that's good feedback. I like that.
All right, thank you. In the interest of time, I'm going to try and speed through the last two here. For the next one is, so we've got Slack, and one of the things we're looking for is Slack moderators. There's a link here to the policy. Basically, we're in Kubernetes Slack, and they're looking for more people who can help moderate, and you'll get special moderation powers and things like that. There's a document there that outlines the whole thing, roles and responsibilities in that. Folks in particular who can overlap with some of the European and what's the time zone like over in China? Basically, the other side of the world for most of us are more appreciated than, or are more needed than others at this point. But we are looking for Slack moderators, and so for those of us who are just sitting in Slack and maybe get into the room and pay attention to it, it may be a good idea to just say, hey, I'm willing to be a part-time moderator who just does it here and there, and I'm willing to help out with those things. So if anybody's interested in that, please come talk to me, and I'll get you LinkedIn. It's not very hard to do.
Do these people need to be core maintainers, or is this something that's broadly volunteerable for people who are just interested in figuring out a way to help?
I'm going to guess it's probably broadly volunteerable. That's how Kubernetes is handling it. I didn't really look into it very much, but if somebody who's not one of the core maintainers is interested in doing something like this, I'm happy to talk with you about it and find out those details. And then
I would like to see this be something that anybody could volunteer for, because I know there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time answering questions in Slack and would be great candidates for trying to keep the spirit of the Slack channel friendly and helpful and stuff like that. But I don't want people to feel like they have to be Go developers or something like that in order to play that role, or sign up big items on development to-do list or anything.
Yeah, and if you all see other people in there who aren't in this meeting who are doing these kinds of things, who we think we would want to be moderators, ask them if they're interested, and if they are, you can point them to me and I'll get them connected into the loop on this. All right, I'll act as that person. And then the last one we have here is there's actually a request for feedback on resource policy one here. And I'll try to share my screen real quick here on this. This is a resource policy one, and we do need feedback on it. It has to do with the leading manifests. There are some folks who requested feedback. I love Butcher's comment. He's delegating. So he actually delegated to you, Mr. Fisher. But if you or someone else can take a look at this who understands the space, it'd be appreciated. Did anybody have any comments on this? I assume somebody's on the line who put this on there.
I
This is Jacob.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention it. I know it looks really big. Most of the change files and tests are actually tests. The commits are broken up into 3 separate commits for testing and documentation and the actual functional changes. So you just look at the very first commit. That's what is changing in the application logic.
Yeah, so I've taken a look at this PR in passing. I've just known that because of the behavioral changes that have happened in previous PRs, that I think Adam and Butcher had reviewed, that while the application logic had changed, there was some uncaught manual changes that were happening in there that we just hadn't considered before. So I think for me, what I wanted to do to make sure was to actually go through and do a manual test. So since I've been doing the project planning for the last week and kind of working on the Helm 3 stuff, I think this is a good tie-off to come back to Helm 2 and start doing those reviews again. So I can take a look at this again this week. Last week was a lot worse for me doing this, but now I can actually do it. So I'll be back on the review list. I'll take that on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. And with that, we are on to assignments for next week. Is anybody interested or able to be the issue Sherpa for the week?
I can do that.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Moderator. Yeah, I'm traveling, so I can't do this stuff next week. Or I'd go in there. Is there somebody who's going to be around next week?
I'm here, so I can moderate for next week.
Okay. Fine, Fisher.
Fine.
And notes?
Unless you want to pair moderate.
I can notes.
Tag team. Okay, Josh for notes. I think I want to see Adam and Fisher tag team moderate. I want to see that. You get this hand slap when you want to go. I want to see this. All right, and so we've got like a half a minute left, and we finished out a meeting on time. All right, thank you, everyone. Round of applause for us this week.
I think Josh had something he wanted to add that we can put on next week's agenda.
You did, Josh?
Yeah, just as we finish on time. Yeah, I'll put it on next week. It's fine.
Thank you, Josh. Or you can hit us up on the mailing list or in chat. There's other ways. All right, thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Bye.